Great to have you on today's episode, Leszek.
Thank you so much, Paul. Excited to be here.
How do you look at the landscape outside the world of Amazon?
Sure. We have some data that we pulled from eMarketer, but still for about 40% of e-commerce in the US happens on Amazon. That number dipped a little bit in 2022, about 36%, but it's still a dominant force. At the same time, we are seeing other marketplaces and other retailers picking up momentum with Walmart and Home Depot and Best Buy and Target. While they're increasing their percentage of the overall market share, they're still very small relative to Amazon. But we are seeing a shift. We are seeing our clients looking to diversify for multiple different reasons. We are seeing interest and we are seeing performance. It's in terms of top line and in performance from the perspective of profitability from other retailers and marketers and e-tailers.
What is the driving force behind agencies and even brand owners starting to look outward to other options?
From my experience, from my agency's experience, talking to clients, talking to brands, there's several different things that are happening. One, Amazon and specifically the fees associated with selling on Amazon. We've seen an increase in those fees. That is, you can see from 2017 to 2022, those fees as a percent of revenue generated on Amazon on average increased from 40 to 50% in 5 years. And while some of these fees associated with services that became a little bit more expensive, like FBA, there are others that maybe used to be optional, but are no longer optional. So obviously advertising comes to play. It's also becoming a bigger part of the puzzle. And it's still, don't get me wrong, right? We still can see tremendous profits from Amazon, especially as the platform evolves from the advertising perspective, from the data perspective, from the different insights we can draw. But the number is quite telling over time. So I think this is a big piece where we are seeing profitability being impacted by these additional fees on Amazon. And I think the other big piece is that we are seeing quite a bit of investment from other platforms into their capabilities. I think Amazon is still light years ahead in terms of capabilities, especially when it comes to advertising, but others are catching up slowly, but they are catching up. And we do see improvement in targeting capabilities. We are also seeing more eyeballs. I think it just makes sense to look at these other marketplaces, these other retailers where there are audiences that we can target and put in front of our brands.
What would this look like in terms of growing your business and growing profits?
Yeah, so a good example to share is one of a brand we worked with. That was a pizza oven company. When we first started talking to them, they were selling on just one channel. They were just selling on eBay. And we were able to integrate them across initially around 20 different retailers and e-tailers, and then ultimately over 40 different integrations that we put in place. This is also an interesting case because we were actually in the first stage. We didn't even run any ads. It's the growth that we've seen is all through sheer presence. So just from the perspective of listing these guys on these other places, within a year, the revenue increased 12x. Again, without any media spend behind it. We've seen a tremendous impact on their SEO, on their online presence. That also helped build credibility of the brand. This is a kind of a fun story too, because they actually got picked up by the Ellen Show. After that the business really took off. Typically, when we start talking to a brand, we want to make sure that we are looking at retailers and e-tailers that makes sense. We are seeing that maybe the eyeballs are not obviously as big as on Amazon, but we are seeing a high purchase intent, especially if we can list products specific to a category where the audience is going for specific categories. So you can think of Home Depot, Wayfair, Overstock, House, etc., where they're individually they're much smaller, but customers go there to find home decor products. So I think there's just a tremendous opportunity just by listing on these other locations.
What is the role of advertising for these marketplaces? Can you even advertise, and what does that look like?
Amazon's expanded their advertising capabilities pretty substantially, and it's absolutely critical now in order to achieve results to advertise not just through PPC, but also DSP and even driving external traffic to Amazon and to help. And there's a competition and all that. I do have a little stat to show. This is basically historical and projected growth in terms of search ad spending from 2020 to 2026. So if you recall from the previous stat, we were talking about 40% of e-commerce in terms of revenue and about almost 80% of ad spend. So you see these proportions are quite interesting. And so that opens up an opportunity to run advertising on other location. But what we are seeing is that while the level of sophistication of these ads is nowhere yet close to Amazon, they can be very, very effective just because of the level of competition is much smaller than on Amazon.
Take us through some of the success factors here. I'm sure it's not a good fit for every single product across every single category. How would you summarize or distill it down in terms of things to think about or things that will put you in a better position to take advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that tend to work really, really well. So I would say high level, those three things: inventory, price point, and then media commitment for about 6 months.
How would you prep others to say, this is the business case, these are the key points to make to your client as to why this is at least an interesting conversation and opportunity to explore?
I think overall, growing market share, putting your product or your client's product in front of audience that is looking for that product, what we talked about, very specific to the category. We've also seen tremendous increase in SEO by listing and having presence across these retailers. Obviously, the big one is managing risk and diversifying that risk of Amazon, not having all your eggs in one basket. And then, also lower competition on some of these marketplaces. Although they are growing, they're still relatively less competitive. The levers that we can pull on some of these places are getting better, they're getting more sophisticated. So the timing is really favorable. I mean, from what we've seen success, and I think that's the right thing to do right now.
What is the best way to get in touch with you and Point Story?
Probably the best is to email me directly. It's Leszek@PointStory, so it's LESZEK@PointStory.io. I'll definitely would love to have a conversation with you guys and get on a call and see what we can do.